A quick disclaimer before we begin, the PEMF podcast does not contain any medical advice, and the content provided is for informational purposes only. If you have any health concerns, please visit a healthcare professional. Welcome back to another episode of the PEMF podcast, and today we're joined by Josh Silver, who is from Pulse Energy Technologies. So we have different range of guests on this podcast, and we have low intensity, high intensity, all the different ranges. Josh is quite a big advocate for the high intensity stuff, and I'll let him get into that and we can talk about all these different things. But what we want to focus this episode on quite a lot is the professional and the sport side of this, because I know that's something that is one of Josh's main focuses. So Josh, if you can introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. My name is Josh Silver. I'm the founder and president of Pulse Energy Technologies out of Los Angeles. And I've been involved in PEMF for literally half my life. We realized it on my 48th birthday when I was 24 years old. I got involved in high power PEMF, and lo and behold, I blinked a little bit, took a breath, and now half my life has been dedicated to the technology. I love it. A lot of people that are involved in technology view this as a career, and I view this as my life. And that gives you an idea of who I am and kind of my background.
No, nice. So take me back to that moment. When was the first time you heard those four letters, PEMF? How did that happen? And why did you suddenly take this 24-year path?
So that's an awesome question, Andy. And I'm not even kidding. I'm getting chills on my arms when you ask me that, because it's so tied with the history of the world. It's remarkable. I was working as an intern for this company that was building out a facility in Los Angeles in Tarzana, that was trying to set up a clinical trial. And I was working there, and I worked there for 9 months, and I had seen these people using this weird box, and they seemed like they were getting some sort of health benefit. I wasn't paying attention. And I went into the job fair at Pierce College on September 11th, 2001, looking to change careers. And while I'm in line trying to talk to a counselor, I look on TV, and the world's most recent, greatest tragedy happens. And my sort of alarm bells went off, and I was like, I don't know if this is a good time to get back in the job market. Like, let me stick with what I'm doing now, and I'll figure it out as I go along. And I had moved to Los Angeles to be a sportscaster. I wanted to be a broadcaster and broadcast sports. That was my dream. And it sort of circumstance forced me to look back. I had a dental issue that I had been ignoring for a year while I was involved with this technology. And that sort of moment made me go, all right, I'll pay attention. And the gentleman who ran it said, you want to try the machine? And I said, yeah. So after about a year, I finally tried the machine, and it fixed my dental issue in about a week that I had been dealing with for a year. And that was my aha moment, like, wait a minute, this is doing something.
So the device that you used there, or how did you start selling PEMF devices? So you used it on yourself, and then...
Sure, so how did I fall into it? So that aha moment really made me sort of stop looking at everything and focus in, because it immediately worked on me and something that I had spent a year and the last little bit of college tuition money that I had left over or saved up trying to fix a dental issue that wouldn't go away. And it worked immediately. So my first thought, being I was an intern at Fox Sports, trying to get into the sports industry, is I wonder if this works on athletes. So when I talked to the guy that worked there, he sort of brought me on board, and I was president bottle washer, or chief toilet bowl cleaner, if you can imagine. I was low man on the totem pole. And I said, let me call the sports teams. He's like, no, this is, we're using this for these types of areas in the world. And I'm like, I think they'd be interested. So he said, all right, if you think they'd be interested, give them a call. So I made 2 phone calls in one day. I called up San Francisco 49ers and then the Oakland Raiders. And I used a phone message that I had come up with in a sociology class in college. And I basically said that I had run into their medical doctor over the weekend. They might be interested in the product, and please call the athletic trainer to set up a meeting. The Oakland Raiders didn't return my phone call. The 49ers did, and said, hey, when can you come in? So all of a sudden, we have a pro team that wasn't going to be interested, was interested in the technology. So my boss put me on a plane, shipped up a product to them. I went in there, and they let me work with 2 players. They had a football player that had a shoulder injury, and they also had a wide receiver that had an Achilles injury. And the wide receiver, which I'll sort of get to name drop in a second, had a remarkable experience where he walked out of the room smiling, and this guy doesn't smile. At least at the time, he doesn't smile. So I go home, and they fly up to Seattle to play Monday Night Football. And this particular wide receiver catches 3 touchdown passes, on Monday Night Football and whips out a Sharpie in the middle of the game and autographs the ball and gives it to his agent. And it's a seminal moment all over ESPN. And that was Terrell Owens. So I'm excited thinking, wow, it worked on this guy. Tuesday, when they get back into the athletic training room, he says to the trainer, hey, where's the machine with that kid? My Achilles has never felt this good after a game. I want to keep using it. So they called us back up and said, hey, the weird box that makes that noise, it did something. Our players want to see it. So my boss took that machine and myself and parked me at the low name brand hotel that was right around the corner from the facility. And I spent the last 7 weeks of that NFL season basically being chief PEMF dude in the corner, using it on all the players, documenting before and after, doing pre and post and in session measurements. And we ended up writing what's now on the internet, the San Francisco 49ers PEMF case study, which documented long-term use. And that was really the springboard into pro sports, because once we had, here's how it worked and why it worked, it got people's attention. And so that sort of, without even trying to be involved, it just took me in that direction.
No, that's really good. And the thing is with this is PEMF, even now, it's still seen as like an alternative health. It's seen as like different medicine, and it's not taken as seriously as it should be. And that's, part of this reason why we put this podcast together, is to raise the profile and to make it more important and to make it more of a widely used therapy. And one of the ways we can do that is to get in front of these professional players and professional people that people know, people understand. And when you can get it through to a few of them, and that can spread, it just annoyingly, a lot of the time people won't take it from you. They have to see it from someone else. And it's
You're
good
right.
that we're getting into these different places. From the UK, we actually sold a device to Cristiano Ronaldo, so probably one of the most well-known footballers in the
Awesome.
in the world. And the funny thing is, there was a similar response to when we got a device to him. That weekend he scored a hat trick, and it was his second trip back to United. He was getting older, and he's trying to find new things to help with his training, with his performance. He came across us and bought a PEMF device, and straight away, it was influence to him. So it's really good to get these names using these PEMF devices, and it's not something we can put out too often, but we want to be. And it's good to see that that's kind of your main focus. When you look at your website, it's very much about these professional people using PEMF now, which is great. And it's really good that you're kind of flying that flag. Another person you've worked with, who you can see quite well online, is Shaquille O'Neal. So probably one of the most well-known NBA players. So how did that happen? How did you get in front of him, and how did he get a PEMF device and start using it?
So it's an awesome question. And, I'll answer it by first saying, it doesn't matter if you're on the spectrum of the left, of the right, of whether you believe in God or you're spiritual and all that. I have had some crazy lucky circumstances that have happened over my years that I've had no doing, that I'm just the right place at the right time a lot of times. And that is the story of Shaq. When I was working for this gentleman in the other technology that I mentioned 20 something years ago, a couple gentlemen walked into this clinic that he had here in Los Angeles, and a younger woman came in with them. And they went over to the side and started talking to my boss about business. And they all went, as at the time, thinking, oh, the adults are going to have the business meeting. And this young woman was just sitting by herself in the corner. And this is just at the beginning of the cell phone era, so it's not like they're on the internet. And I looked at her, I'm like, I know this woman. Why do I know this woman? And it dawned on me, oh, shoot, it's Shaq's wife. She's sitting there by herself. So I went over and I said, have you tried this machine? And she's like, no, but they told me about it, and my back has like some issues. It's been flaring up. So I brought her back and we used it on her. And as you know, Andy, it works. So she went, wow, this is amazing. She's like, you know what? And I said, yes, I do know what. This would work great on your husband. I was waiting for like the opportunity. She's like, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Can you come up to the house tonight? And I'm like, Shaq's wife just asked us if we can come up to her house and bring the machine to him. Yeah, I think we can do that. So, in my head, I'm freaking out, but I realize what you said. Once it works, it's transcendent. And so we brought the machine up to his house. And funny enough, it was myself, and the person that connected us is a gentleman that has since passed away, but his name is Dick Gregory. He's a legendary comedian, activist, author. And he's the gentleman responsible for introducing Shaquille and I. And essentially, we got into the room, and it was myself and my former boss that has passed away. And all the adults went to go talk, and it was me and Shaq. And we sat there, and I used the machine on him. And in 3 minutes, he even tells his story on his podcast. In the first 3 minutes, he went, "No way. This is unbelievable." And immediately it worked on his shoulder that had been bothering him all season long. And he says, "Give me your number." And he grabs my phone, and we trade numbers. And overnight, I was Shaq's guy. I lived 10 minutes away. My boss that night gave me a key to the facility. And he's like, "When Shaq wants a treatment, when he calls you, you go get the machine, you go up to his house." And so it just embarked on this now 20 plus year relationship where he has been utilizing PEMF for just about anything under the sun, and the results sort of speak for themselves.
And hopefully you don't mind, hopefully he doesn't mind, but we found this audio clip online with Shaq talking, because, you know, there's one thing hearing it from you, there's one thing hearing it from me, you know, we can name drop all we want, but hearing it from him, I think is, you know, super important. And what he says, again, is just incredible. So I'll play it through the mic now and see if hopefully the audience can hear this.
Me personally, my New Year's resolution, thanking the people that helped Shaq become me. This gentleman, his name is Josh. I met him. I don't remember how I met him, but he introduced me to a machine that saved my career. And if I tell the stories you're not going to believe, no, seriously. Like, he'll explain to you, but I just used to put this thing on me, and they used to send stuff through my body, and like every injury I had would be gone. Gone. Erased. I'm talking, for example, after this hip surgery, I called him, he sent me a bringer, I sat on that thing, I recovered like a couple days after hip surgery. So, I mean, you can't get a better advocate than that. And, you know, what he's saying as well is just incredible. You know, it saved his career, it erased the pain. What a great thing for him to share.
And we should say this in the same way that we have been fortunate enough to provide PEMF for him and have this behind the scenes over the last 20 years. He has pulled so many strings and opened so many doors for me personally, and for me and for PEMF personally. It's stuff people will never know about him. He has gone out of his way and bent over backwards for me. I'm sure you saw me, my eyes well up, because he's more than just a user of the machine. He is the ambassador for this technology, and his New Year's resolution this year is he's going to get more involved with what we're doing, and I'm really excited about that.
No, it's incredible. So, I mean, you've worked with Shaq, and you've got your device into the NBA teams. Can you kind of explain to the audience, what are they looking to do with this technology? You know, what do they what outcomes do they want to get from this?
Sure, and so the thing that it took me a while to understand over time is they're you and me. They're you and me, Andy. They just happen to be on a bigger stage with more spotlights and more pressure, doing what they love. I'm sure that you have some level of exercise, competition, things you like to do, work out, play basketball, do that. And when you go to do that every second or third day, you go out on the court or you go out on the field, and your body tells you a story of what's going on. Ooh, shoulder's a little bit cranky today. My hip's a little bit tight. And they're looking to just be able to perform at their optimum level, get back on the field faster, recover, sort of mitigate the setbacks. That's really what they're doing. It's they're looking for any sort of competitive edge on the legal, healthy realm, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to allow them to do what got them to the top level of professional sport or competition.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just about the performance, like you're saying, when players are picking up injuries in the field and that sort of thing, you know, it's also a means of getting them back on the field as quickly as possible. So it's like getting there, and once they're there, you know, it's performing at their kind of top level. Are you facing any kind of problems when you trying to get in front of these people? So, you know, you said that you've had really good luck to get under some people, but, you know, once you've got some of the advocates out there and you can sort of say this is happening, what are the biggest problems you're facing getting through that door with these big clubs?
Sure. So every team, I recently referred to, every team has a bouncer.
Mm-hmm.
Every organization, every club has a bouncer that's sort of standing at the door and preventing, or a gatekeeper, people call it, from preventing a new technology to get in there. I have found over the years that as time goes on, and maybe some of the people that were in their position for 25, 30 years have now moved on, and it's the next generation and the next generation. These generations, as they go through their scholastic accreditations, physical therapy classes, chiropractic, athletic training. More and more, we're seeing biophysics integration products, devices, as opposed to physical. And as that has gone on, it's become easier and easier. Typically, how we disarm them is connect them to a similar organization that was at where they were at, and we offer the product at them at no cost for a short, controlled sort of trial.
Okay. And so you've worked with the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball is another one that you kind of getting in front of as well. Are they looking for the same results? What are they approaching you guys, or is it something you?
They are, and so here's the paradigm shift, Andy, and I'm guessing that you're seeing this as well. Is that it's now a combination of not just the organizations but the individual players as well. And how that is coming through is through the teams. I've had 3 different Major League Baseball teams contact me this offseason on behalf of an individual player, saying, "Hey, player A used your product here or tried it there. Now they're doing their off-season rehabilitation program. We'd like to buy one for them, or they would like to rent it. How do we do that?" When initially it was just the team or the organization like one. How they're utilizing it is really in the same 3 platforms. Is we have recovery, athletic improvement or enhancement, and sort of the preventative overall wellness. And all 3 of those are sort of different areas of use, but it seems to be, especially in Major League Baseball, those are the 3 areas they're really going to.
And that was good that what you just said, actually, because the same experience we had, we've sold a couple of devices now into some UK Premier League football clubs. We sold one device to Manchester City Football Club. And we sold that to the physios working there, but it was at a request of one of the players that they just transferred in. So it was like, the player was coming from Spain to the UK league. One of their terms actually in their contract was that they get hold of one of these products because they've been using it in Spain to such great success. The other one we had, like I mentioned, Cristiano Ronaldo, that actually came through complete personal purchase. So he got his bodyguards to contact us and purchase this device. At first we thought it was a scam. We had this guy contact us, say it was Cristiano Ronaldo's bodyguard. And we kind of like, yeah, okay, where do you want us to send the money? But it turned out it was real, and we actually delivered this device to the house that Ronaldo was living in. And we never actually got to meet him and see him and everything like that. But it seems to be the players' request more than anything. And are you finding that you're selling to more clubs, or have you actually had any players buying them for their home?
I would. So a conversation I've had just recently on a networking call is just looking at the scale and the gradient of sales. It's definitely increasing by the individual player. I've had 2 individual baseball players in the offseason purchase one in that same vein where I said three clubs contacted. We had one that rented, 2 players purchased outright, and the team was just the introduction point. That's definitely happening. And when you look at, we're 5 days out from the largest guaranteed contract in worldwide professional sports history. Juan Soto just got $765 million guaranteed. If there's 3 or 4 products out there that a combined $30,000 US guaranteed that this player is going to be healthy for the duration of that contract, we're really just talking about an insurance policy, Andy.
Yeah.
And that they are starting to see that, especially in where I think the influence is also coming, and I've heard this from a few direct sources, is the agents. Because the agents understand, look, if my player is playing for 8 years versus 6 years, this is X amount of dollars for them and their family for a longer period of time. That's essentially what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And this assists that because you're keeping a top talent on the field.
Okay. One place that we see people requesting more information and selling devices to when it comes to the sport industry is boxing. In the UK, we seem to be really, really successful getting devices into all these organizations that are doing boxing. We've just got a device into Matchroom, which is Eddie Hearn. And, you've got likes of Anthony Joshua, all those sorts of boxers that will be using that device. So that's really good to see, especially with boxing, because the thing is with boxing is you're one person versus another person. If you're not training, if you're not recovering, if you're not doing the extra 1%, they will be, so they're looking for all the cutting edge technology to make them that extra percentage. Are you seeing a trend in a specific sport in the US that tend to adopt PEMF therapy more so than others, or is it kind of across the board?
No, actually, I thought we may come to a discussion point of this, and I was thinking about it last night. And where I'm seeing the trend isn't a particular sport; it's a movement to a younger generation, all across the board. We're seeing these specialized sports training facilities, these 10, 15,000 square foot baseball, football, hockey, sport specific training facilities that are all working with high school, college kids that are trying to become scholarship athletes, NIL money, professional athletes. That's where I'm seeing this, where there's a huge use of the technology now, where I can tell you doing this 15 years ago, that definitely wasn't the place for it. It was not there at all. And I think that's where the trend is not necessarily sport specific here. It's more generation specific.
And I've used this term before because you mentioned the younger people that are trying to get the most, this is a terrible term, and I probably shouldn't be putting this out there, but I've referred to PEMF as like legal doping before because it's a natural way of giving yourself that extra 1%. We've seen likes of like Jake Paul, influencer turned into boxer. He's posting pictures and videos of him using a high intensity PEMF device. So they're starting to understand it now, and they're starting to see where there's ways in which they can kind of like use this technology to give them that extra 1%. So yeah, so I just wanted to say it with that. The majority of the listeners of the users of PEMF aren't Shaq and Ronaldo and all these famous people. It's you and I. It's rec league players, guys that I played basketball in college 10 years ago, and now I want to play with my buddies. And that's where I see the difference. Listen, in my old age, I travel a lot and I play sports competitively, and these medals are not because I'm that great. It's because I bring the machine literally onto the court or the dugout, and in between innings, I utilize it. It's exactly what you said, Andy. It is a performance enhancer in the most natural way, and the results speak for themselves from the top level athletes to the bottom level athletes like myself. Yeah. So you're quite an advocate for the whole high intensity side of the PEMF world. Why is it that you went down that route and don't do the both, or just, kind of you seem to be more on the team high intensity?
So I'm going to answer it in from a completely different perspective. And I am team neither. And I'll tell you why. How I came into this is the most unique way is I literally grew up in this technology. So there wasn't an option coming in the front door of, hey, try this or try that. It was just this, right? And it was just this high power thing that I saw and developed over the years. And this has been my opinion. And I've been in thousands of clinics, in hundreds of cities, in tens of countries over 20s of years, right? Over a long period of time. And I can tell you that there is a place for every version of what we call PEMF technology in the health and wellness space. And there's a use for it. My personal opinion is I don't view what we classically call team high power and team low power as competitors. I actually view them as different technologies utilized for different things. And so I never would say only use this and only use that, because the reality is all the successful practitioners out there will say it's not one ingredient in the soup, it's the soup. And so I know it's a little bit philosophical, but the reason I believe in what I believe is because I've used it. Now, I've been exposed to low power and I've seen it work for lots of things. So there's a time and a place and a reason for everything. And that's sort of been my philosophy with the technology versus A or B.
No, that's a great answer. And it's something that I think it's good for you to share, because, your device specifically is high powered. So people might think that you're only on that team, but, it's the same view that I share, that there's room for PEMF in terms of low intensity and high intensity. And personally myself, I use the both to great effect. So, getting a bit more technical onto your product specifically. So we talk about that.
Yeah.
Your one gives the ability to change the frequency, which at the higher level isn't as common. So was that something you really wanted to implement, and why was that you wanted to have a bit more control on the frequencies?
So with our machine, it's really an improved version of what the predecessor was of the predecessor of the predecessor. And how I have always experienced the technology, and I'm going to give you a little two-part answer, is that being able to adjust the speed of the pulse with a high-intensity machine varies both the depth of penetration, right, and the power. And so this has been my personal philosophy from years of use. We've made that knob more than anything, not for comfort. Here's what it's for, Andy. When you take that machine and you plug it in a hotel in Sri Lanka, and then you get on the plane and you fly over to Australia, and then you come to the States, and then you go to Canada, and then you go to South America, and then you go back to the UK, all in 2 weeks' time, that PEMF machine is going to operate differently. And I know because Shaq told us. Mm-hmm. And so originally the design of this knob was to be able to adjust that pulse to the 2 to 3 PPS range, which is all the really good clinical trials, all of the known science really talk about. My personal philosophy is I prefer to keep the frequency at the known science rate and use distance as the modulator, not and dial those things in there. My personal belief with some of those devices that really have, as you're talking about the adjustable frequency, it's for comfort and concierge, not necessarily for application and science.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I mean, a great way to break it down and to explain, why those features are there for sure. When it comes to when it comes to applying your device, do you have a preferred method? We've seen that you've got the ring applicators. Do you do matte applicators? Is there one that you prefer? What's your kind of secret sauce in terms of what you normally recommend on your unit?
It's a great question because I was talking to a doctor yesterday that said, I saw a couple of your videos and each video you said, this applicator is your favorite applicator. So which one? And I laughed. I was like, well, but if you look at the years, it was different years. Mm-hmm. I think my favorite applicator is really based what I'm working on or working with. However, if I really can only utilize one, right? Trapped in a room, I can only utilize one. We have something called a backpack. It's like 2 large wings that can go on like a backpack, but can also be small and manipulated and done in elbow, wrist. That one is probably my favorite because it's the most universal, because you can do almost essentially what you would do with a mat, but then you can also do something essentially that you do with a small applicator for a wrist or a hand. It's a nice catch-all.
Oh, great. And this is a kind of a controversial question that a lot of people sort of, throw my way when I'm sort of talking about high intensity devices, because there are people that are out there that say high intensity is dangerous, you can overstimulate, all that sort of thing.
Sure.
What's your answer to that, in terms of...
Sure. I'm sure you get this question all the time. I get this question all the time. I've seen some of your podcasts and a couple of the different guests have answered fantastic answers and they're spot on. Here's my typical response to that is the first point is why? And I'll straight up ask them why. And I will want to hear from them. Well, I heard from this person or I read somewhere, and then I'll just follow the trail. Well, where was the evidence? And if you trace back the evidence, we're talking from a scientific level. There is 0 reported adverse reactions in 40 years of clinical use here in the United States, right? And we know that because it's searchable via Google. There's no scientific evidence that says, hey, if you do A, B is going to happen. I honestly think it's sales speak from people trying to bark and yell at each other, and there's multi-level marketing and pyramid schemes and all these different types of products where people are looking to make sales. And my honest, true belief is that sales speak. And if somebody says, well, we don't have any long-term evidence of somebody using high power on a semi-daily basis for 20 plus years, and I look around the room and I go, well, we do.
Yeah.
Because I've been using it almost on a daily basis since 2000. And we have no adverse reactions to report. And so I'm trying to give myself as an individual example, but it really, I try to rely on the science, Andy, and there's no science that says that.
Yeah.
So if we can see the science that says that, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. No, good. And, the reason we kind of keep asking this question on this podcast is because, it's something I want to debunk as well. We want to get rid of this mentality from the market because, I strongly believe that, the high power stuff isn't dangerous and it is having such great effects. So the combination of the two is perfect. talking about clients, talking about your clients, people that have bought devices, that sort of thing. Is there any that specifically stand out for you? Don't have to be sports people, anything like that, but something you want to mention on here that it just resonates with everybody.
I do. So I'm super excited we got to this question. When I was reading some of the stuff, I was like, I really hope we get to do this one. I've been doing this, like I said, half my life, and there's a few that stand out, but the thing that I want to express to people is this about all walks of PEMF, from the 500 to the 50,000. When you hear, I've tried everything, it doesn't work. Well, I'm not, nothing has been able to help me. This has been going on for 20 years. I've sort of given up. This is how it's going to be. Those are our people. Those are our PEMF people. This isn't just, I hurt my elbow and I want to go play tennis this weekend, or I'm a pro athlete and I need to get back on the field faster. I have seen over the years, this technology is, I want my life back. And just two quick stories I'm going to share is there's a woman 20 plus years ago that would come into the clinic with the previous technology, and she had a brain fissure, and she had brought in these MRIs with her husband where she'd been in a car accident. And I guess the steering column punctured her brain, and the pre-MRIs, you can see there's a whole missing section of her brain. So she used the PEMF consistently over 2 years. And what I personally saw, like I said, low man on the totem pole, chief bottle washer, was this woman went from being completely paralyzed on one side of her body to reading, writing, talking, writing again in a 2-year period. She got the matching MRIs. And when you look at the MRI after 2 years, it's remarkable because that whole chunk of brain that was gone had pretty much regenerated. And so this woman's life was given back to her. Another quick one that I'll throw in was there was another particular woman I'll never forget. This is, again, 20 years old, but being right there and seeing it sort of unfold. There was a woman named Kathy that had chronic low back pain that would come in and use the technology, and she was using it 3 times a week. So it was a fairly consistent. And she wasn't really getting any results. And typically with PEMF, I'm sure as you've experienced, if they don't have any results at all, it's a head scratcher a little bit, because we should be experiencing something. And I think it was in the middle of her maybe 17th or 18th session, you could hear from the treatment bay this very primal, deep sobbing, not crying, just sobbing. And she stood up, which she was normally laying down, and she was sobbing, and everybody left where they were to come over. And in between her gasps of air, she's saying thank you. And she's just saying over and over to everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And when she gathered herself, her pain was completely gone, and she was walking around like a new person. And she explained to everybody that she had lost her husband in a car accident 10 or 12 years prior. And maybe the pain and the trauma was trapped together, and she had some sort of emotional release. And from that moment on, her back pain was gone. And she ended up getting a job as a technical operator of the machine. And started using the machine on other people. So she went from basically bedridden to helping give the technology. And that was just unbelievable. When I look at who she was, person A and person B, they were 2 completely different people, Andy. Yeah. And so those are the things that keep me involved with what I'm doing every day.
No, and it's great feedback. And, like when you were just saying there, it's hard to pick one or two. And actually the best examples are the feedback that you get really often. And something that really resonates with me that someone said literally 2 days ago. And, I said to them, it's so common now that people say this. And it's these words that I wish I'd found this sooner. And it's just such a common, that it could be pain, it could be this, it could be that. But that one kind of ticks with everybody because it's like, thank you so much. I wish I'd found this sooner. So, it's, even with these sports guys, they want to be performing at the top of their game from day one. So, but yeah, thank you for that, Josh. I think we'll kind of wrap it up there.
You're welcome.
It's been an amazing episode. Where can people find you? So if anyone wants to, find you in terms of checking out your device or talk to you more about PEMFs, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Sure. So our website is pulsedenergytech.com. That's also the same as our handle on Instagram. Anybody that has any questions, feel free to write, text, send smoke signals from the mountain. Me or somebody that works with us will get back to them. Happy for anybody to try the technology. It's a life changer.
And every platform that we put this podcast onto, there's option for everyone to leave messages. So please do, if you want to leave a message to Josh, we'll make sure he gets it and he can answer that. So, but just for our listeners, thanks for listening again. And if you can like and share these podcasts, we can get more great guests just like Josh Silver. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Andy. It was awesome. I really appreciate it.